Hello and welcome to Sacred Home, Zen and the Art of Homeschooling. I'm Ollie Malley,
And I'm Michael Malley.
and this is our very first episode of this program. We've wanted to talk about homeschooling for years. Michael and I met as elementary school teachers 27 years ago or so,
Way back in the 90s, yeah.
back in the 90s. And since then, we've been homeschool parents, homeschooled two kids so far, K through 12, and one who's still in middle school. And then we have a grown daughter who's 32 with two grandkids who went through the school system.
Yeah.
She was doing that while we were teaching.
Yeah, so we have a 6-year-old and 2-year-old grandchild as well. So we have a pretty wide spectrum in terms of kiddos and a lot of experience too. I've also worked as a professional storyteller. Michael the Storyteller. You can find that online if you wish. And so I do programs for schools. I've also been an educational consultant for schools. Do a lot with writing with students. So we have this background. But one of the things we want to communicate is that, with our current situation, families all over are homeschooling, and you don't need to have all the, graduate degree in education or whatever. You'll be fine with your kiddos. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're hoping to use this venue just to let people know a little bit of what we learned about homeschooling. But also to recognize that what's happening right now with social isolation is not the kind of homeschooling we've done or any of the other people we know have done. We have many friends that we homeschool with, and the joke of homeschoolers is that we're never home.
Yeah.
And I've been communicating with many of my friends whose kids are really struggling, also homeschooled kids who are not used to just being at home and not used to being isolated from their friends either.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about that a lot. We've done a lot of work with mindfulness with children and families and adults. And so we hope to bring that into this and talk about resacralizing home, resacralizing relationships, resacralizing family.
Yeah. And we have another program that another video program that we've also just started called Sacred Ground Watering Beneficial Seeds. It's a spiritual response at this time of the coronavirus. And so you might want to check that one out too. This one's specifically about home, family, our children, and of course homeschooling.
Yeah. One of the things Michael and I have been reflecting on is that at this time, it is such an incredible time that of the oneness of the human family. Like, I don't think ever in history before, just because there wasn't the ability to connect, have so much of humanity been in such a vulnerable situation and being able to see it across the globe.
Yeah. Being in it together, right? And of course it's painful and scary, but there's also, it points to our oneness. It points to our unity, right? And it is an invitation.
Right. And so through this crisis, even though there's so much that has added fear to so many of us and our children, we feel that there is an opportunity for all of us to, well, one, we're all slowing down. Yeah. Everything's just been stopped in our schedules. And there is just an opportunity for healing of ourselves in the slowing down, healing of each other, healing of our earth and our earthen family, and healing of our individual families. Because we do homeschool, but we are so much on the go. And to be able to take some time to recenter and reevaluate and look at our priorities and what is important. Because what we thought was important a few weeks ago, what my kids thought was important, a birthday party or a play that they were in. We have a son that we just brought home from his sophomore year in college. All of those things are now gone for them. And there's a lot of grieving that's happening right now, and a lot of rethinking, a lot of confusion, a lot of being disoriented. I felt this last week very disoriented because every day we're hearing something different
Sure.
in the news, and so are our kids. And being able to understand and give us all a little break that being in the house like all the time together, there are tensions that are going to come with that, and being able to recognize that some of this is just might be manifesting as anger or frustration, but a lot of it is just fear and disorientation and just sadness and grief.
Right. So it's this. I mean, it's very interesting, Ollie, because you're talking about this opportunities for healing while we're in this worldwide sickness and this pain.
Right.
And so we don't want to belittle or in any way try to minimize what people are going through. You know, we all, if not our own selves, we almost all of us have someone that we're close to who is elderly or who has a compromised immune system, and so these fears are genuine, they're real. But we also we're in it, and we have to look and find the opportunities, you know, and that pain, the pain of the kiddos, you know, it was our daughter was going to have her 18th birthday party next week. You know, it's kind of a big deal, turning 18. Gosh, our kiddo at college, or our seventh grader who had all these plans with his friends. Not to belittle all those losses, but to kind of enter into how do we deal with this together, and what are some other things that matter. I mean, that's we always have thought of homeschooling not just as reading and math and writing, although it is all of that. We'll talk about that too. But it's also, how do we care for each other as family? How do we grow? Who do we want our children to be as adults in the world? We're all going to be somewhat shaped by this coronavirus. It will shape part of who we are. But how does that come out? And again, none of us are going to do this perfectly. Our kids aren't going to do it perfectly. But how do we handle this? How do we handle the conflict? How do we give each other space? How do we create spaces for learning and caring and love?
Right. I mean, we've thought of homeschooling as life schooling, I think we would call it. That everything you do is homeschooling, whether your kids go to school or not. You are your child's number one teacher. And it's not just in those moments when you're parenting or if you're schooling or homeschooling. It's at those moments when you're not. When your kids are just watching you, and they're watching you right now. They're watching how you're reacting. And so we want to have some invitations to all of us to how we can lower our stress levels, how we can find joy in the midst of crisis.
Yeah.
They say crisis is danger and opportunity, and how we can find those opportunities.
Right.
Well, one thing we've been doing is going for walks every morning and walking our dogs.
Yeah.
Which our dogs are so lucky now. We'd maybe walk them 3 times a week before, but they're getting a couple walks a day, and noticing the reemergence of spring. I mean, what an amazing time for your kids to be able to slow down and to watch spring, and to be, some of you have yards that you could go into, and maybe could go to a park if you're isolating yourself from other people. Getting outside and watching the flowers blooming. All of a sudden, there's yellow in the forsythia. There are the daffodils. There are the crocuses. There are the snowdrops, little white snowdrops.
Yeah, we saw some this morning.
Yeah, and noticing that. I mean, one thing that you could do is to go out and with a camera and take a picture every day of the same tree, and watch that over time, and depending on how old your kids are, they could be very enthusiastic about that.
Right. Yeah. Especially the younger folks, right? They're kind of up for that.
Right.
And you know, Ollie spoke of that we do a lot of work with mindfulness, and mindfulness is about presence, the pure awareness of nowness. This is it. No matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it is, this is part of it. And we don't need to beat ourselves up and feel guilty for those times when we snap at our kids or when we are too tense, because that's going to happen, right? But how do we step back again, go take a rest, go get a little time to yourself, and then how do we come back, and where can we bring a little bit of playfulness, Where can we bring a little bit of joy? Hey, let's put the, let's put the radio on, and if the kiddos are young, and dance, or if the kiddos are older, hey, who wants to play a board game tonight? I mentioned to our older ones, it's like Pinochle. That's a tough card game. I've never learned how to play it. We got time. Do you guys want to learn how to play Pinochle? Right? So like, find those things, whatever it might be for you. Gosh, some of you, to be able to sit down with your kiddos and do some art projects. These are the things we're going to talk about, and this is just the introduction. But again, how do we water beneficial seeds? How do we care? How do we care for each other? Who do we want to be? Who do we want our children to be? What do we want our families to be? And recognizing the pain and the suffering, and there's going to be grieving, and there's going to be worry, and it's going to be the full life.
So we're going to try to do these every day. That's our aspiration.
Yeah.
And as we do them every day, it's just one day at a time. Right now, it's one day at a time.
Maybe
all
for you
the time,
too.
but certainly now, it is one day at a time, one moment at a time, and we're just going to offer that to you. Whatever today was like, tomorrow can be different. And we can make different choices every day. And we do that with homeschooling. We always reassess and say there's always tomorrow. It's a new, fresh day.
Right. And maybe to try to notice one thing today. There might have been 15 or 35 great moments, or maybe there was only one, but where was a great moment? Or where is a great moment in this day when you just connected with your kiddo, where there was just such a sense of, wow, our home is a sacred space, where there was just laughter in the room. Where's that moment? And let's all work to make those moments arise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks you guys for listening, and we'll try this again tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Namaste.